Off the Podium, an Olympics podcast coming to you for the latest Newscast episode. Can you believe it's been a month since one of these? We're back to bring you all the latest Olympic news and everything else in between. And I'm always excited to be able to have that opportunity to talk about the Olympics with America's number one Olympic nut, Mr. Jamie Lyko. Jamie, welcome back to Off the Podium.
Thank you so much, Benjamin. Thank you very much. Yes,
Ooh,
I will
Benjamin.
try to do America proud.
I mean,
some small way.
I'm wearing Team USA today, and I'm getting called Benjamin all of a sudden. This is very formal.
Well, we
I like it. We're at that
America,
level.
if nothing else, we respect the rest of the world. So, yeah.
In all fairness, no matter what people say about the Americans, you are very respectful. So I will definitely give you that. But it's been an exciting few weeks, obviously, since we last spoke. Always stuff happening in the world of the Olympics. And I think that the biggest thing that we've had happen in the last 4 weeks or so since we spoke is Los Angeles 2028 have essentially confirmed events that are happening for the most part that we're going to have come the Olympics in just over 3 years' time. We've got new venues announced. It was very timely, given that in our last episode we talked a lot about where the cricket might be, and all that got confirmed. But the big news around all of this, we've got 32 new medal events that are going to be in these Olympics compared to Paris, which there's a bit to talk around that. We've got gender equality in a way that is not really equal, but it's big news for women because we're going to have more women than men for the first time ever at an Olympics. And a lot of venues that I think a lot of people assumed or knew were going to happen or where they were going to be, a lot of sports confirmed. So I'm going to throw it straight to you to get your initial thoughts on this, Mr. Lyko, because as a Californian, you're there, it's in your backyard. I mean, what's your kind of initial take on what was announced by the LA 28 Olympics?
Some good, some bad. I mean, obviously, I think they finally announced specifically that baseball would be held at Dodger Stadium, but I think we all knew that. Mm-hmm. I think the bigger question surrounding baseball is, will Major League Baseball here in America come up with some, workaround to let professionals play for their countries? A lot of American athletes, big names, foreign athletes too. I mean, Shohei Ohtani, the Dodger, and, is spoken about wanting to play for his national team, and a couple of the big American names, Mike Trout have spoken up that they would like to, and MLB's commissioner, Rob Manfred, is being diplomatic about it, but it seems like an impossibility, but I think it's one of those, it's only impossible if we don't get a little creative. So, I mean, we played baseball for a whole season in empty stadiums, and we can figure it out. So hopefully that'll happen. Volleyball in Anaheim,
yes.
At the Honda Center, right?
Indeed,
Center?
yes. Duck Pond.
The pond, right?
Yep.
Home of the Ducks Mighty.
Yep. Nearly wore my jersey for that to celebrate it today, but it also feels a bit off. You don't wear a jersey in NHL playoff time if they haven't made it. So, went Team USA. More successful.
Fair. That's fair.
More successful.
The two that the one I'm least excited about is that they're moving volleyball to Long Beach, all the way to Long Beach. It was going to be possibly in Santa Monica by the Santa Monica Pier, which I think would have been great, but the city of Santa Monica and the planning committee couldn't work it out, apparently. So now it's going to be all the way in Long Beach. They kind of skipped over the South Bay, Manhattan Beach, Hermosa, just because I don't think they can handle the crowds. And sorry to interrupt though, is that the marathon though instead is going to be, the start and finish is going to be at Santa Monica, I believe, instead? I think that's going to be in Venice.
Venice, right. I get all the right Californian beaches. You've got too many famous beaches in your state.
There's whole songs about the famous beach, and there's another famous beach that's going to come into the conversation in a second. But so the South Bay, Hermosa Beach, Manhattan Beach, famous for beach volleyball, but there is by design almost no parking there because the people that live in those homes in those towns would rather only people from those towns come to their towns. So that's I understand that. Squash being held on the Universal lot in Courthouse Square.
That's exciting.
It's going to be fun for, even if you don't like squash.
Which is, again, to interrupt very quickly, that throws me back to the Commonwealth Games in 2018 that I worked at, because I worked boxing, but it was at there's a theme park in the Gold Coast called Movie World, and they film a lot of movies. It's like Aquaman was filmed there, for example. It had just been filmed before the Commonwealth Games. So, and on that lot, you had boxing, squash, and table tennis. So I would, in between boxing sessions, go and watch squash. And literally, as you exited, they had this big boat sitting next to one of these big sheds, which were movie studios. That was the boat from Aquaman. And you're like, cool. So, like, to me, that's kind of cool that they're also using a movie studio lot similar to what they did for the Commonwealth Games here.
Right. And this, I mean, the squash is going to be in what's called Courthouse Square, which is the clock tower from Back to the Future. So,
there you go. Wow.
I looked it up. The character actress Elsa Raven that played the clock tower lady that goes around yelling, "Save the clock tower."
Yes.
Unfortunately, we lost her a couple years ago, but it would have been fun to incorporate her and maybe into the commentating crew or something.
Let's have Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox hopefully last a few more years and, you know,
fingers crossed. Yeah. Biff will do it. That guy, that actor, that guy's everywhere. So
yeah, he's around. He's there.
I think the one that's coolest is they finally, I mean, there was obviously a lot of options. They could have done it up in County Line, up on, up north of Malibu. There's a lot of places, but they're going to have surfing at Trestles, which is San Diego County. It's about 70 miles from the Coliseum, San Onofre, that general area. They have the world's, I guess it's called the World Surfing League final there every year. It is a famous surf spot. It is mentioned in the Beach Boys Surfing USA. It's technically lower Trestles, and just for anybody that's going to come and wants to sound like a local, just call it lower. That's all you have to call it. So keep that in mind. You don't want to look like a kook. So,
you know how Californians will think about that. I mean, the beauty of California is going to be very similar to Brisbane. Is that California's a surfing state, a beach state, very well known. People go there for its beaches, its surf, its sand. Queensland, the state where Brisbane is exactly the same. That's literally the tagline is called the Sunshine State. I mean, I would liken Queensland more to Florida based on its climate and everything, but it's also like so many beaches in Queensland that you're not going to struggle for beach volleyball and surfing and everything along those lines with that.
Is that where the Gold Coast and the Sun Coast are?
Yeah, so basically, if you looked at a map of Queensland, Gold Coast is like down the south, kind of near the border of New South Wales. Brisbane's in the middle, and then Sunshine Coast is above Brisbane. So basically, when I lived there, I essentially lived halfway between the Gold Coast and Brisbane. It all blends in. To me, it's the same place, but you never tell that to somebody. You say in Brisbane, the Gold Coast is the same as Brisbane. They get very offended. They basically like, no, it's probably like if you said LA and San Diego are the same. They probably somewhere gets offended, probably more San Diego, I guess. But it's so like sprawled out now that it's essentially connected. But I was like a 45-minute train trip from Brisbane, an hour train trip from the Gold Coast, essentially. And it's a beautiful area. So, and from what I've seen of California, I mean, honestly, I'll be honest with you, Jamie, the only Californian beaches I've actually been to would be at San Diego. I can't actually say I've been to a Los Angeles beach. I've never been to Venice. I've never been to Santa Monica. So maybe my next visit there, I need to, go stick further north in San Diego and see some of the beaches of LA.
Yeah, we, I mean, the beaches of Orange County are a national treasure, for sure. And that, I mean, the South Bay beaches are great. Venice is more of a vibe. Is that what the kids are saying? It's a vibe more than someplace you want to go necessarily go put your beach towel down and, sit on the sand all day. But I do think it's great that they're incorporating it into it by having the marathon start there or end there. I can't remember, or both.
The venues sort of touched on there, like Staples Center, Crypto.com, whatever, confirmed for volleyball. The Inwood Center confirmed for basketball. Obviously, those ones were sort of known, as you said, Dodger Stadium. The Honda Center, which is an interesting one. I mean, all jokes aside, well, not really jokes, all things aside about me being an Anaheim Ducks fan. You and I were just talking a little bit off air that something that was sort of released during the week that I feel hasn't made the news outside of Anaheim Ducks social media is the fact that the owner of the Anaheim Ducks has literally come out this week and said, I'm going to invest $1 billion into the Honda Center and the surrounds. So the owner of the team, Henry Samueli, he's funding this himself. So this isn't a case of, as we know, it usually happens in the US, like, we want public funds and, blah, 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 we're going to lose the team. So he's come out, and a lot of this is for the Anaheim Ducks. I mean, that stadium there, originally called the Duck Pond, obviously sponsorship reasons, now it's the Honda Center. It's been there since, the early 90s when they first got the team, and nothing's been done to it. And it's often regarded as one of the most decrepit venues in the NHL. But now this investment, not only for Anaheim, for the team, but obviously it's going to happen ahead of the Olympics for volleyball. And it's sort of in that vicinity, as you often get the case now with stadiums. Oh, it's going to be an entertainment complex. There's going to be hotels. There's going to be all this kind of stuff. So I think that's kind of interesting that you've got the owner of a team going, yeah, I'm rich, I'll just build it myself, rather than just going like, oh, the Olympics are coming. Everyone else can fund it. So, I mean, the Honda Center will get a bit of improvement for the volleyball.
Yeah, I mean, he may be taking a play out of Steve Ballmer's playbook. You know, I mean, he borrowed against his own family trust, I think, is how he did it to, build the Intuit. No, I guess he doesn't own the Intuit Center, but he bought the Forum because that was the only way he was going to be able to build the new Clippers arena. So, yeah, I'm all for billionaires spending their money instead of mine. So go for it.
Before we get on to some of the new events that have been confirmed and discuss around that sort of thing, the other one that we'll just quickly mention, because we were talking about this so much last time on the newscast, is cricket has been confirmed at a fairground, essentially. Tell us a little bit about where cricket is going to be.
The Pomona Fairground. It is probably, I'm gonna say it's a 45-minute drive with no traffic due east of downtown Los Angeles. They have, I think, everything from horse shows to state fairs, county fairs type there. Historically, the United States used it as a gathering area when we unfortunately interred Japanese American citizens after Pearl Harbor was bombed. Not our best moment. But now we treat people from other countries so much better here, so it's fine.
You won't have any issues with the Japanese cricket team, so I don't think you'll have to worry too much about that.
No, they don't. Not a big sport in Japan.
I mean, they might qualify. I don't know. No disrespect to the Japanese cricket team, but I've my entire life of following cricket, even in these lesser competitions where the likes of a USA will be playing in a sport that's not that big, I have never seen a Japanese cricket team in any competition I've watched. So,
is the rule still in effect that host nations get to have a team regardless?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So we are going to be fielding a cricket team.
You will have a men's. Again, I think we discussed that last time. I mean, your men's 2020 team did beat Pakistan last year in the World Champion 2020 World Cup, and that's akin to an Australian, I guess NFL team beating an NFL team in a World Championships. You know what I mean? Like that was such a big upset that you guys did that.
Yeah, I mean the area itself is obviously just a giant wide open space. They're going to have to build something temporary, I'm guessing there. I don't think they're going to turn the fairgrounds into the premier cricket venue on the West Coast. So,
it's interesting though to see that based on our discussion last time that, likelihood it could have gone to New York, it could have gone to Texas, even, the Coliseum up in San Francisco, Oakland area. But they obviously want to attempt to keep as many sports as they can within the vicinity of Los Angeles and sort of, I guess, Southern California. So, I mean, that works well. And I think I'm just so, we talk about it all the time with cricket. I know obviously we've got much more of invested interest in this part of the world when it comes to us and obviously for you and say Colin, for Canada, US, it's a bit of a novelty for you guys. But this is also just going to be so interesting to see how it's going to be handled versus 4 years later when it will be one of the premier events in our country, similar to what, say, lacrosse will be for you guys in 3 years' time. If lacrosse is kept on the schedule for Brisbane, that's going to be a similar thing. Like, lacrosse, who cares? Let's put it out somewhere. So I'm just very intrigued to see how it all goes out, because you're going to have, obviously, such an influx of, say, Indians and Pakistanis and Sri Lankans, people who maybe wouldn't go to an Olympics in the first place because historically they're not great at the Olympics, whereas now they've got cricket. It's going to just similar to, say, Fiji in rugby sevens. Before rugby sevens was introduced in the Olympics, you wouldn't really see a lot of Fijian representation, say, on the fan side of things. But now that they're winning medals in it, boom. So, yeah, you're going to have a lot of people from the subcontinent all of a sudden interested in coming to an Olympics where cricket is an absolute religion, even more so than it obviously is in Australia.
I think it's great. I mean, it's one of those sports that we don't play, but massive amounts of people around the world play. So, yeah, I'm all for it. It's
going to be very interesting. So the events now, my math might be wrong. I'm reading here on a report that actually 22 new events will be happening for the. I've written 32 down, so it's either 22 or 32. But the big ones that have been announced around this, and I want to have a bit of a discussion about what this could mean for other events, because I feel there's a few things not being talked about when it comes to new events, what that means for other events. So big news in the swimming front. We're going to have 3 new swimming events, which is a whole subject in itself. So we're going to have all the strokes are going to have a 50-meter event. So previously, obviously, we've got a 50-meter freestyle event that we've always had at the Olympics, but a 50-meter backstroke, breaststroke, and butterfly have never been contested at the Olympics. They've only been contested at the World Championships. They've added them to the Olympic schedule, of course. Athletics-wise, we've got a 4x100 mixed relay. So we've obviously got the 4x400 mixed relay. So they're adding the 4x1 on that level of things. Women's football, soccer, the teams are going to be increased to 16, while the men's competition is going to be reduced by 12. Now, again, a separate conversation on that one. But when it comes to that, we know that women's soccer essentially at the Olympics is almost on par with the World Cup because they're allowed to send fully professional players, the best of the best, whereas men's, obviously, we know there are restrictions around that. Other competitions have been expanded, so 3x3 basketball teams are going to be increased with that. Water polo will have parity for men and women's teams, so there'll be 12 teams on each of those as well. We're going to have the compound archery discipline at the Olympics for the very first time, and that's going to be in the mixed team. So obviously, if you don't know, archery is recurve at the Olympics, but then at a World Championships, you have recurve and compound. So that's exciting for archery fans. That was one of the ones to me that I was like, well, I like that. I like the fact that we got one. And the other one that I was very, very excited for, because every time I've had a sport climber on this show, they've often talked about how they've distributed the medals in Olympic sport climbing and how it just isn't right. So the first time we had sport climbing in Tokyo, that was a combined. So they had lead, boulder, and speed all together. Then for Paris, they separated speed, had a combined, which is boulder and lead. But now, as they do at World Championships and World Cups, all 3 disciplines will be separate. So we will have medals for boulder, lead, and speed at the LA Olympics, which I think is fantastic when it comes to that one. We've also got coastal rowing, which is something that I believe Colin brought up in one of our previous episodes that I apparently was oblivious for, but we're going to have 3 events in that. We have a mixed all-around artistic gymnastics team. We've got mixed events in golf and table tennis as well. And I think I've covered all of them. And the only ones here, this is again, which I will come to on a separate subject. I'm then more concerned about what is being cut because as we know with the Summer Olympics, generally if events come in, something's got to go because it's so tight in terms of the caps of athletes and events. The only thing that I know is officially being cut is the marathon race mixed walked relay. And from my doing the maths and the sums of events from Paris to LA, the only thing outside of the obvious one of breaking, we're going to lose 2 medal events, obviously, with breaking not being on the sports calendar for LA, is I see here that there seems to be 2 less events in rowing, as in flat water rowing, not coastal rowing, because there were 14 rowing events in Paris. There are set to be 12 flat water events in LA, if I'm looking at the correct numbers, not including the 3 additional coastal rowing events, if that makes sense. So just a general overview of that. I've gone over a lot there, but let's start with the swimming because my biggest question around this is, do we need more swimming events? I'm not anti-swimming. I'm Australian. I love swimming. Of course I do. You're American. You love swimming. We win lots of medals in swimming. It's fantastic. It's one of the premier events of the Olympics. But the biggest complaint around swimming is there's too many events. Of course, Michael Phelps is going to win 500 medals in swimming. He's got 500 events he can win, whereas Usain Bolt can only win a certain amount because he's only got a couple. So my biggest question is here, as great as it is that we've got this opportunity, do we really need, of all the sports to add more sprints in, does it need to be swimming?
My instinct is no, because it seems a lot from someone who loves to watch us rack up medals at the Olympics or the World Championships in swimming. But I if I'm being fair, I don't know. It seems like, yes, also because one person can win 5, 6, 7 medals across various distances and strokes. As a track and field person, I know how big of a deal it is if someone doubles in like the 200 and the 400 and how rare that is, or someone, if it ever happens again, someone doubling in the 400 and the 800. As a track and field person, I can be like, yes, the way they have the event set out, those are unique disciplines, and being able to win 2 is a very unique thing. I mean, the 100 and 200, we've seen that, maybe multiple times. I mean, the last person to win the 400 and the 800, I think, was Alberto Guantarena from Cuba in 1976.
Can you just say that name again? I just love the fact that you know that, and I just want to hear that name again.
Alberto Guantarena.
What a name.
El Caballo Blanco, the white horse.
Okay. Can't wait till we get to those games
reviews. And he had amazing hair. So like if you were to tell me they were adding the 1,000 meter and the 3,000 meter to track and field, I'd be like, we don't need that. We don't need that. Nobody's really training for that at the World Championships, because our World Track and Field's World Championships matches what the Olympic program is. If you're telling me that the World Championships for swimming has additional events, then I guess part of me would want to defer to someone who knows more about swimming than I do, which is basically everyone.
It's that level. Exactly. I think what you put the point on there is that, a lot of sports the Olympics don't match their World Championships. And there's reasons behind that, is because the Olympics is much more strict on number of events and how many medals there are, number of athletes. Qualifying, all of this sort of stuff. So that's why you'll have a lot of athletes talk about a World Championship is much more prestigious in their sport, because like we had Luke Perry on, for example, Australian volleyball player, and he mentioned that in the volleyball world, indoor volleyball world, the World Championships are often considered more prestigious because you've got a full 32 team field of the best nations in the world, whereas, say, the Olympics caps it at 12. I mean, this perfect example is with women's soccer, because we saw that issue in Paris last year, that you only had 12 nations, and that the Women's World Cup a year prior here in Australia had 32 nations. So and obviously then qualifying, Europe's going to be capped. Like it's not the level of that, so you can see that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I can see the argument of, the Swimming World Championships have these events, let's match them. I'm all for the term equality when you're matching the events, to me, primarily on gender. So to me, if you've got 20 events in swimming for men, you should have the exact same ones for the women in that as well. Athletics, the same. Do I agree that they should match the World Championships? No, because I think they're different. And I think that the World Championships are run by that sports governing body. They can do whatever they want. That's their bag. These are the Olympics. These are separate. They're, mainly run by the IOC and the organising committee. So my long-winded way of saying that I personally don't think we need additional events in swimming. As great as it is in Australia that we can win more, but it's already stacked enough. It's already done to a point where, you're getting crazy numbers of medals won by athletes, which is always great to see, but that's then you open that door of like, well, can you really compare a Michael Phelps to, say, an athlete in an event that they can only win one gold medal in? It's not their fault. You know what I mean? So I don't know. We'll see how it is. I mean, more medals, great for Australia and America, potentially in sports that we already win medals at. But I feel bad for some of these other sports that will miss out, because this is to me the biggest thing that doesn't get talked about in this, like, new sports, equal number of athletes, all this sort of stuff. Events have to be cut in order for these to come about. And if it's not events being cut, even if they're able to go, okay, well, we've got 22, 32 new events, great, but at somewhere, something has to be cut. So they're going to reduce the number of teams or athletes in another event. They're going to all of a sudden, like we talked about it back in Tokyo in baseball and softball. We only had, I think, 6 teams in softball, didn't we? Back in Tokyo. I mean, 6 teams, that's ridiculous. Half the teams are going to win medals. Like, what's the point of even having that? Whereas back when softball was in, say, Sydney, Athens, 8, 10 teams, like it's sort of, that's where
I mean, my pushback would be is if you're trying to grow a sport on the global level, like look back at, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, how many nations sent teams to the 1976 games in Montreal for the first women's basketball competition? Like, and how many were competitive? So again, I'm with you on there needs, like, I'm all for gender equality, but I'm also for, let's not get to that by adding numbers to sports, whether it's on the men's side or the women's side, where it lowers the level of competition. Like, like, don't increase the men's field hockey field at the Olympics to 32 to match the women's if there aren't realistically 32 competitive teams, you know? Like,
yeah.
well, let me ask you this. If cricket wasn't debuting in the United States and cricket was debuting in Brisbane, a country that loves cricket, throw out a number. Like, how many teams in nations in the world would have a realistic chance of winning the gold medal in cricket?
In that form of the game, I mean, look, there's the standardized 8 major nations of cricket, and generally that's where you're picking from, because if you were to look at any major international cricket competition of the last 50 years, it would have come from those 8 nations. So realistically, that's how it rolls. But the argument there is that you've got other sports,
realistically,
ice hockey, handball,
the United States, this could be the first and last time the United States ever competes in cricket, because there's possibility for all. I know, as you said, we've had some recent success, but consistently we don't qualify. Do I really want the United States to go to, let's say in 2032, the Olympics are in, 2036, the Olympics are in India. Do I really want to watch the U.S. team go get beat by, I don't know what even counts as a blowout score in cricket, 727 to 344? I don't know.
But you raised a good point. It's always a double-edged sword, because you got to grow the game somehow, right? So like,
right.
You can't grow a game and not have these countries. Like it's what we're seeing in the men's soccer World Cup with 48 countries. A lot of people are saying, well, that dilutes the field. You're going to have thrashings. So it's like, well, yeah, but at some point you've got to enable these teams to grow. Like, I mean, rugby sevens is a classic example, because now we do have teams like the US, like Canada, non-traditional rugby nations actually challenging for medals and winning them. Whereas 10, 20 years ago, that was unheard of. So I guess
my contention would be is that the responsibility of that shouldn't fall completely on the IOC. Like, just to invite a team, like if I'm guessing that US rugby grew because the national governing body decided we're going to invest in this sport in this country. I don't think they're like, oh, we can have an Olympic sport, let's put a team together.
100%. So and that's what we're seeing with cricket, because the version that we're seeing at the Olympics is, again, what's called 2020. And a lot of these shortened versions of sports that you see now, 3x3, rugby sevens, flag football, these are off the back of the success of 2020 cricket. When 2020 cricket was introduced 20 years ago, there was famously an exhibition game to showcase this version of the sport to the world. It was between Australia and New Zealand, and it was treated like a joke. People wore fancy dress on the field. They had nicknames on the back. It was like a joke. It was like, a bunch of, our famous cricketers getting together. It's kind of like, say, the NBA All-Star game, right? Nobody really takes it seriously.
Or the XFL. I don't know if you remember the XFL.
Exactly. I definitely remember it. But then what happened is they realized, well, hang on a minute. This actually has legs. And now you would argue that 2020 is the premier form of cricket for television and participation. Not for prestige. That will always be Test cricket. But you're not going to have Test cricket at the Olympics, because it's a 5-day version of the game. No one's got time for that. My point is I think, and I completely agree with you. To me, it's up to the sporting federations to grow their game. The Olympics can only enhance that. I think we've just, there's no perfect answer here, because I think, again, this is where I look at these numbers and everything that I always then question the other side. I had a great history teacher in high school that always told you to look at the other side of things no matter what. It basically comes down to, great, new sports, new teams, new athletes. There has to be cuts somewhere, because
right
at the end of the day, the Summer Olympics have a very strict 10,500 athlete policy. That's the rule. We don't have this issue in the Winter Olympics, because that's growing and you can add more stuff. Summer Olympics, it's that cut. So again, you've got 22, 32 new events. How many of these events are team events? Cricket's team event, softball, baseball, flag football, lacrosse. The majority of them are team sports. They've all got people they've got to come. So you've got to find other cuts somewhere. So there are, that's just to me where I raise the concerns, because we do get a lot of athletes on this show who will talk about that will say, like, well, this is never mentioned, that all of a sudden now my event has been cut. my event has had half the field cut, so I've got like a less chance of qualifying. So it's actually disparaging other sports that isn't being taught. So that's where I just want there to be a line drawn, and I feel
I was just going to say I hope our new IOC president isn't listening because I don't want to give them any ideas, but I've always found it interesting that the two sports with the biggest squads at the Olympics, at least for Australia and the United States, I'm guessing, are the swimming team and the track and field team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in swimming, if I'm not wrong, you can send 2 competitors in every event.
Yep.
In track and field, you can send 3 if they have the qualifying time. And at least for the United States, there aren't a lot of events that we can't find 3 people to make the qualifying time. It has happened. It happened a lot for a couple of years for a couple of Olympics with distance events, but hopefully we've remedied that. I'm wondering when it happens, when it becomes that's the cut they make.
Yeah,
where they
true.
start
Fair
saying,
point.
Only the top 2 finishers at the U.S. track and field championships, Olympic trials get to go.
That's a great point, and I agree.
I hope that doesn't happen.
Well, because I think we see that a lot in winter, don't we? I mean, we've had many conversations in this show, like using the Canadian freestyle skiing team as an example. Say their moguls team, they might have 8 of the 10 best mogul skiers in the world, but they can only send 2 of them. And as we see with some of the winter sports, freestyle skiing, for an example, they do their quotas not just on the event, but the entire sport. So Canada might have a cap of 15 freestyle skiing athletes, which has to encompass moguls, aerials, big air, half pipe. It encompasses all of them. So you might have a brilliant half pipe free skier that isn't going to get chosen because they want to stack their aerials team, their moguls team. You don't see that in athletics, do you? You don't see that, you can only send 100 track and field athletes. We're really good at the 100, the 200, the 400, the discus, the hammer throw. So sorry, shot putter, sorry, pole vaulter, you can't go because we need to stack our other events. So, and that's interesting coming from a winter perspective when they've got more room to move. So, again, there's no perfect answer. There's always going to be questions. I mean, look, my argument would be get rid of the 10,500 athlete cap. You keep growing this event, increase that. I mean, whatever you want to say about FIFA, they at least had the balls to go, let's increase the teams to 48 for the men. Let's increase it to 32 for the women. I think even in the women, they're looking at increasing it to 48. And people complain about that, but I'm fine with it. So be like, bug it. Let's do 12,000 athletes for the Summer Olympics. Let's add another 50 medals. Whatever. Anyway, whole other thing. The one thing I
think it'll be something that everybody has a lot to say about until the opening ceremonies are over and everybody starts competing, and then nobody's going to be complaining that there are 50 more gold medals to give out. We're all going to be perfectly fine with it. That there's
we're going to
have the 10-meter freestyle swim.
That also, again, I'm sorry to be the male who brings this up, but it also then it questions when they use the words the most equal games in history when you still have one gender having more than the other. Now, again, I'm not going to sit here as a male and be like, oh, this is completely unfair. Sitting here having had over 120 years of history where men are more than women at the Olympics. I understand that. But it's also a level of, there are then going to be male athletes who are going to miss out, who are still athletes. I look at it as people. I'm going to be that cliche person. They're just athletes. It doesn't bother me with the gender. And it just worries me that you're so focused on, we've got to be equal, that you're then adding more of one, if that makes sense. I'm all for boxing. I didn't mention boxing have equal amount of events for men and women. Fantastic. Water polo, equal. That's what I want. I want to see events with equal number of men and women, equal number of events for both of them. There are going to be some where you can't have the same distance. As we know, there are some events where women's have you got the heptathlon rather than the decathlon. Again, I don't know why that is, but that's a whole other topic. But why is softball women only and baseball men only? Why can't we have women's baseball and men's softball? Things like that I look at. The synchronized swimming, artistic swimming, is a whole other kettle of fish, as we've talked about with men. There's no males in the rhythmic gymnastics. Things like that to me, which are questionings, and there's reasons behind it. I'm just putting it out there. And again, I'm not trying to be that guy, but at the end of the day, it's not an equal games if one gender has more than the other. That's just what I'm saying. I just need to put it out there. So I don't like that marketing ploy when it comes to that. We talked about that last year during Paris when it was all about, look at Team Canada. All of our gold medals are won by women. How fantastic. And then you literally have the male athletes going like, well, hey, we're winning medals too. Like, it shouldn't be one over the other. We should be completely in the middle. But male out,
yeah, I mean,
Jamie.
No,
we just lost all our listeners.
Gonna try to throw you a lifeline here. This is, and I don't know, in the United States is unique, I think, in that college athletics carries a different weight. I think a lot of it in other countries, clubs are how you move on to get to be professional. But like the idea that we have college sports and universities put so much money into them, whole other argument about whether they should be doing that, and we're 50 years into what's called Title IX here. And there's still, this rule creates situations where funding is going to get taken away from university athletic departments. And if to keep it fair, they have to cut 4 men's sports and only 2 women's sports. And one, stop giving out 80 scholarships for the football team every year, because that really, American football, that really skews the data. And 2, I feel like at some point you kind of have to rip off the Band-Aid, let the pendulum swing to the other side, and hopefully it settles back into, actual, parity. But I think the Olympics guiding mandate should be, this should be the competition of the best athletes in the world. And that's agree. A really hard North Star to follow when, like you said, if U.S. track and field only sends 2 athletes instead of 3, that's probably a guy in the 100 meters and a lot of other events that had a chance at a medal.
Yeah.
And
100% agree. That's, I think you hit the nail on the head. And again, that is always my argument. The Olympics is the peak of sport and it should be the best of the best of the best. Yes, obviously there are limitations to that. And soccer is always the shining example of that, because if you argue what is the biggest sporting event on the planet, technically it is the Men's World Cup based on numbers and everything along those lines and how that works. So that is why you do not have the best of the best male players at the Olympics. I understand the logic behind that. But at the same time, you've then got younger athletes who, back to your point, are trying to put it out there on the world. That's maybe going to be their only place to do it. They're different qualifying. A lot more sort of African and Pacific nations get a chance to shine at the Olympics, under 23 players. So to me now, they're being held back because, we're adding more teams to the women. Why can't we just have 16 men and 16 women's teams? Or, just like that simple. Like, I don't see why 4 men's teams have to go in order to increase it to women. Like, it just, like, correcting the wrongs of the past is not done by making things a certain way now. But
I to some extent, I agree with that. But if we're, again, going with this should be a representation of the best in the world, if there are only 12 men's teams that have a realistic shot at it, but there are 16 women's teams that have a realistic shot at a medal, because women's soccer players, those teams are including, they look much closer to the Women's World Cup squad than the men do, then I'm okay with it.
But I mean, I agree on that, but I also disagree. I mean, there are not 16 teams in women's soccer that can win it, but also on the men's side, I mean, nobody really talks a lot about the World Cup that, it's like cricket. There are literally probably only 4 or 5 teams that are ever going to win it, right? Like it's sort of, but we love it all the same. And some of the most famous Olympic stories I remember growing up came from men's football. Cameroon winning gold in Sydney 2000, beating Spain on penalties. It was one of the biggest stories. Nigeria winning in Atlanta. African nations winning these medals, which, has gone on to make African nations a lot more powerful.
And in the World Cup, we listen, I'm not a huge soccer fan. I don't watch cricket. The greatest tournament in my world is the men's and women's NCAA championships in basketball. And we love the Cinderellas in those competitions, but only for the first couple rounds. You want, Long Island, SUNY Stony Brook to knock off, Michigan in the first round if it's a 5 versus 12 kind of matchup. But when it comes down to that Elite Eight,
yeah,
there's still those teams. Like this year was one of the few years that all the teams that made the Final Four were number one seeds. I'm sorry, I'm making this very American, so I apologize to the Canadian and Australian listeners. But the competitions were amazing. You didn't have, so you want those huge upsets the first 2 weekends, but then when time gets down to the Elite Eight Final Four, you want games that are 91-93, one on a buzzer beater, because these are two, this is the best team in the country versus the sixth best team in the country. At that point, you no longer want to be watching, University of Connecticut versus the South Dakota School of Typewriter Maintenance. That was a Few Good Men joke right there.
I was going to say they're a good team. I get what you mean. Because as somebody who spent the majority of my sporting fandom rooting for neutral teams in championship games, you want it to at least be a good game when you've got no invested interest, right?
Yeah.
So, but at the flip side, if your team makes it, you want to play the easiest team so you win. So
my alma mater has quite a few national championships against teams that were. But I mean, if you get to the championship game, are you really second rate? So I don't know.
As a Raptors fan, you only won the championship because half the Warriors were injured that year. Well, give the shit we won. All right, so leave us alone.
I don't remember that. I remember you guys getting.
Nobody who's not a
Toronto
mid-season remembers that.
I don't remember anything about the Warriors being hurt. So.
I mean, look, it's plenty of stuff to talk about as always, but I mean, it's great that we're getting some traction with it, and obviously, big talking points and news, and it's we've got 3 years to get there still. Believe it or not, like doesn't it almost feel like we're in such that, I was thinking about this the other day, we're in such that weird moment of the Olympics that we get every 4 years that you're less than a year removed away from the past Summer Olympics. You're less than a year removed from the next Winter Olympics. So it's kind of like, well, where does my focus go? Because even on this show, I want to get athletes on this show who have come back from Paris and hear their stories, but I'm also wanting to chat to winter athletes in the lead up, sort of that level. And then it's almost like the winter doesn't get the attention because then we've got this happening. So it's much easier after a Winter Olympics because then we've got 2.5 years to the next Olympics. So then you just kind of like a lot more chill, right? So, but it's exciting for Olympics fans.
It also is weird that we ended the last Summer Olympics and we're like, we lost a whole year. Like it's already here.
Exactly. Last Tokyo, we had 6 months until Beijing. So we were like, hurry up. A couple other things to touch on. I've got an exciting little bit to close out on a discussion point. The Paris 2024, speaking of Paris, they released their official report recently. Now, obviously, we're massive Olympic nuts on this show, but I don't know about you. I didn't really have the time to sit down and read 132 pages of numbers and statistics, but some interesting ones going on there. I mean, I've got two versions of this report. I've got the one that the Paris 2024 committee released, and then I've got one that the IOC released. So the Paris one's only 24 pages. The IOC one is 132 pages. But looking at some of these, the numbers that they're touting there. So I like this one. 4,200 employees were employed during those Olympics. Of those, 1,180 recruited in 2024 alone. So that's like pretty incredible there. And we talk about the equality numbers there. 51% women, 49% men. I mean, it's close to equal as you can get without being equal. So I think that works really well. 45,000 volunteers for those Olympics. Now, I love this number here because everyone talks about budget. Everyone talks about, who's over the budget of Olympics. According to this is the Paris one, 2.7 billion euro was their official budget. And I mean, they haven't actually, I feel here, said whether or not they've been over or under that. But on top of that, they're saying that 88% of that came from French suppliers for that money. So that's very good for the economy for France. They're saying that in the best possible case scenario, long term, this will bring them 11.1 billion euro to the French economy, which is pretty crazy to think about that. And 181,100 jobs they claim were directly created because of the Olympics. Now, I'm not working for Paris 2024. I'm not working for the IOC. I'm not trying to be here to be the spin doctor and do all the positive numbers because I realize there's always another story to this. But I just like to see some of these numbers because everyone always complains about economic impact of the Olympics. Are they worth hosting anymore? Oh, they bankrupt a city. All this kind of stuff that you always hear the negatives of. I feel you never hear these talked about outside of the people trying to spout those numbers. So, I mean, look, I'm a numbers man on some level. Other than this, like I could go on here for ages with it. But You had a brief peruse of the report. Did anything stand out for you at all?
The money stuff, obviously, like that's positive. I mean, you could pick it apart, and I'm sure people will. Like, were the jobs created only for 3 months or 2 weeks, or and I understand that, but I don't know how to. The voices out there that have decided, the no Olympics people that out there that have decided that we should get rid of the Olympics. LA 28 could do exactly what it did with LA 84 and put whatever adjusted for inflation, the $250 million, war chest that we had after it. We could do that again, and there will still be naysayers. So I think that we should look for due diligence. We should look for we should keep our eyeballs, peeled for corruption. Obviously continually worried about, the impact of the people that lived there before and lived thereafter in whatever city that it's in. But, it's never going to be perfect for the people that have already decided the Olympics are a waste of time. So
other couple ones here that I found interesting. 100% energy was from renewable sources. So they're touting that one, obviously, as a very big deal, which it is a big deal. That is very good that Paris have done that one. 16.7 billion engagements across Olympic social handles. 16.7 billion. Jamie, that's what? Double the population of the Earth somehow engaged with Olympic social media across the Olympics last year. Now, I love how every time this happens, this is a new record. Yes, because generally 4 years ago, social media was very different to what we don't even know what we're going to be doing by Brisbane 2032 when it comes to social media, right? So, of course, it's going to increase every single time. 7.9 million fans at celebration sites across France. And look, again, being on the ground and just seeing that atmosphere there was just absolutely insane. And obviously after, sadly, Tokyo couldn't do the same as what we had, and Rio obviously had their issues. I mean, to me, this is really the first one since London where we're going to see such big numbers. But as you said, they're going to the IOC aren't going to be like, oh, this was shit. So of course they're going to post the numbers out there. But if people want to see the full documents, you just go to the Paris website or the Olympics website, and you can download it if you've got a spare couple of days and want to read 132 pages of numbers. Get it off the Olympics one, or if you're short of the time, the 28-page one of Paris. Probably better for you to read, right?
I would take the 28-page one and run it through ChatGPT and narrow it down to 4 pages for you, because there's a little bit of fluff and a lot of back patting, which as a fan they earned. They can pat themselves on the back.
I had when I was living in Canada, and I was the website I was working for at the time, I was trying to start to do a bit of work on the Victoria Commonwealth Games from 1994. So doing a bit of research, speaking to some people, and I managed to get my hands on the official report from the 1994 Vancouver Commonwealth Games, which I still have to this day. And if you're watching this on video right now, you'll see what I'm doing. It's about this thick. And it was so well crafted, and I want to sit down and read it because it does interest me. I know the Sydney 2000 one, you can go to certain libraries here, and there was, every Olympics do them. If you go to the official Olympic library in Lucerne, you can get copies of them all there and just sit down and read them. So, they've got to be done, right? I'm not a businessman, Jamie, so I don't know how these generally work. Reports. You've worked with me long enough to know how I am when it comes to getting documents done. So, interesting there, though. Another thing, too, on an Australian perspective, time recording this during the week, we had a day for the Australian winter athletes, I guess it's they tout it as a bit of a media day, but it's more so they get a bunch of the athletes to go along to try on uniforms and it's the processing day, official team photos. So around about 70 athletes go along to this, which is always that awkward period. I spoke to, she's going to be a guest in this show in a couple of weeks, and you'll hear about that. But one of the athletes who, may not make the Olympics, but then they're still invited to these days, and they question it because they're like, well, I'm going along getting uniforms tried and photos on, but I might not make it. No, I feel a bit of an imposter. So, but that was done yesterday. And through this, the Australian Olympic team have announced their campaign ahead of next year. So the social campaign, let's get on board. Of course, if you remember for Paris, it was Allez Oz, right? Very, French. Let's get a French word, make it Allez Oz. It sounded really good. This time around, they've gone with Forza Team Oz. Now, Forza, as a Ferrari fan, I know this very well because Forza Ferrari is a famous thing you say for Go Ferrari. Forza means both force and come on in Italian, right? So they're basically going like, force and come on, Team Oz. My question with this is, hashtag Forza Team Oz. Why isn't it just hashtag Forza Oz? Right? Well, it wasn't LA Team Oz. It was LA Oz. Maybe rolls off the tongue because it's AA. But like, Forza Oz, it's short, it's to the point, like it just works. Why do we need to add the word team in there? So that's my biggest question to Jamie. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on Australia's branding of our support for our winter athletes, but drop the team, AOC. Just have it Forza Oz, and then we're on board here.
Yeah, this might shock the audience. I didn't spend a lot of time dissecting the Winter Olympics Australia team's marketing, but I did.
You're fired.
I did watch the Twitter ad with the fast-paced images and I don't even want to, I feel like even describing it to the audience might make them have the seizure I had watching it. So I don't want to go, but it was a tough ad, but you know what? Hey, lean into it.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I definitely applaud that sort of getting out there. Got a bit of traction in our news media. Australia expecting the AOC have released sort of their numbers of what they're expecting next year. A team of around 60 athletes from 12 sports, and we only had 40, I think 42, 44 in Beijing. I think our record was about 60 or so back in Turin or Vancouver. So that would be near a record for us. And I love here their comparison, which is a great little stat because I like these sort of stats. If we send 60 athletes next year, the last time the Olympics were in Cortina, we only sent 10 competitors back in 1956. So that is how much it has grown there. Yeah, long time ago. The same year that we had the Olympics, of course, in Melbourne. And the other one that's also exciting, just as announcements here, we've nearly had her on the show a couple of times. I worked with her at Channel 7 back when I was there in 2022 for the Beijing Olympics. Katja Kramer has been announced as our deputy chef mission behind the great Alyssa Camplin. So congratulations to Katja there, who is a ski cross dual Olympian. She speaks fluent Italian. So I think that obviously helps her a little bit on there as well. Team USA, I mean, I'm wearing this now, but I mean, Team USA they don't need to have Forza Team USA because USA, I'm adding the t sound to it there, aren't I? Because you're just hashtag Team USA. That's all you need to be, right? That's who you are.
Yeah, I don't the only time I can ever the best US Team USA slogan I ever remember, this is going to date me, but it's also relates to Australia, is I guess it was the 1987 America's Cup. Mm-hmm. And we had lost in 83.
I was about to ask you what happened in 1983, Jamie.
Is that a big deal? I don't know if that's a big deal.
Probably the most historically famous Australian sporting event in our history. That's a whole. I will talk to you about that one day. Yeah.
And it was a big. It was but so it was in Newport, Rhode Island, and my family, being from Connecticut, went. My dad was huge into anything nautical. We went and we all had the T-shirt with the America's or the American flag on it, and we were those people. But for 1987, when we had to then go down
to Perth
to Perth, mm-hmm. They partnered with Visa, and at the time, Visa had a slogan: "Don't leave home without it."
Nice.
And there were T-shirts everywhere that said "America's Cup 1987. Don't leave Perth without it."
Fantastic.
And I would kill to still have one of those T-shirts because we have them. But that's my best Team USA marketing campaign I can remember.
It's funny, right? You talk about, we're both from countries where we've got famous sporting histories, famous sporting moments, but the ones that always will stick and people remember. Now, I mean, to me, as a non-American, I see the one that gets the most love is probably the Miracle on Ice. And obviously, I mean, I know
which may come up later in this podcast, but
exactly. And obviously, you guys are an ice hockey nation, but it's also not your number one sport, right? Like I associate America with basketball, with baseball, with NFL. Australia's a similar thing. We love sailing. Like, don't get me wrong, we're a proud sailing nation, but it's not the most watched sport in this country, whatever. But if you were to ask most Australians to list the most famous Australian sporting moment ever, I guarantee you 8 out of 10 would list America's Cup in 1983. I wasn't even born, but I know the historical significance of that. And the things that always stand out for me is that, and it just shows as a country how great we are and how much we just take the piss out of ourselves. Land Down Under by Men at Work, which is already a famous song, that basically just became our national anthem because of that. And our Prime Minister...
I'm also pretty sure it came out that year.
Yeah, I mean, it tied in very well. Yeah. National pride. We're not like you guys where, we sometimes feel a bit ashamed to be like, Australia, there's certain levels of that, but that was a real one. But the other one was our Prime Minister famously was like live on TV, and the great late Bob Hawke was renowned as a bit of an alcoholic, but he's live on TV and somebody questioned him. Bit of an alcoholic.
It's kind of binary. Right?
He literally
you aren't.
In his later years before he died, there was always a day of one of our famous cricket matches where they would cut to him in the crowd and all the drunken people going, oh! And he would just scull a beer, just live on TV. He's like 80 something. Anyway, but so he was live on TV the day after this happened. And somebody questioned him about like, a lot of people would have stayed up late last night watching this, people calling in sick today for work.
Right.
And he's like, if any boss fires their worker for missing to work today, they're a bum. And just so Australian. Imagine Donald Trump doing, well, actually, no, don't.
Let's not imagine any.
Ronald Reagan, that was the 80s.
Reagan.
Oh, fantastic.
So if 8 of 10 Australians would put that as the number one moment, what are the other two pick?
Oh, that is a great question. I mean, look, Kathy Freeman, Sydney 2000 would be up there. Australia, John Aloisi scoring a penalty in 2005 to send us to the Men's World Cup for the first time in 32 years. That's probably my personal favourite that I've ever witnessed in my lifetime alongside Kathy. Cadel Evans winning the Tour de France is always up there in the 2000s because it was a big deal for an Australian to win the Tour de France. The things that get diluted around, like our Cricket World Cups, and we've just won so many that they don't really count. So you'd look at the recent ones, the Women's World Cup, like us, the penalty shootout against France to send us into the semi-finals. Still to this day, one of the most watched television events in this history. The World Cup against the semi-final against England became the most watched television event in Australia ever from that moment on. So, plenty. We have plenty. But to me, the three that honestly I think most people, and they do in Australia, they'll have like a newspaper listing the biggest sporting achievements or the biggest moments. It'll be Australia Cup, it'll be Kathy winning gold, and the soccer, the goal. What would outside of the miracle on ice, what would America? I mean, you've got so many. That's a loaded question. But if you were to give me three outside of the two outside of the miracle on ice, what would they be?
I can't. The Women's World Cup with
99?
Brandi Chastain, in 99. That was yes. Just in case anybody didn't
people
know,
don't realize what I did.
Just in case anyone didn't know, Ben pretended to lift up his shirt.
She famously took his shirt off in a sports bra. That's got to be
up there, but and again, people can go off on how we, whoever wins the NBA title is the world champion, and whoever wins the MLB championship is the World Series. And I get all of that, but Olympic moments. Caitlyn Jenner in '76 was a huge one. I've sadly that's probably lost some traction.
Yeah.
Mark Spitz is obviously pretty famous. Michael Johnson's double in '96 was a big one for me.
Yeah.
But
what's the gymnast's name? The gymnast in '96 who landed on a broken ankle?
Kerry Strug.
Yeah, that one. That one stands out for me.
Yeah, I would have thought.
You've got too many loaded questions.
It's just I think it's interesting. International sports, international competitions.
Yours would be more domestic, I feel. Whenever I see American lists of greatest sporting moments, it's a Super Bowl. It's an NBA. It's a World Series.
Always.
Red
it's
Sox,
like best
Cubs.
Super Bowl moment.
Yeah.
My favorite Super Bowl moment is either the first Patriots win or the comeback against the Atlanta Falcons. And, anybody who's not a Patriot fan hates us for both of those. So,
I'm a Buffalo Bills fan. We don't have any famous Super Bowl moments except wide right? So
they might be coming.
if we can get past the Chiefs, don't give me trauma, Jamie. Don't give me trauma.
The best moment I've seen recently. This is a little plug for a movie. The best moment I've seen recently for anyone affiliated with the Bills. Go see Sinners with Josh Allen's fiance in it.
Heard a
She's
lot about
unbelievable. That movie's awesome.
I'm actually going to do this. We're recording this on the Friday. We're releasing on the Monday, but because I feel bad we're leaving Canada out of this. But for Colin's sake, I'm literally just about to do a live update to see if the Leafs have choked or if they've going to Game 7. And congratulations, Colin! The Leafs! The Leafs have won a playoff series! Hey, Colin! You're into the second round! Sorry, it's a rarity. It's the second time they've won a series in like 20 years. So, and they still haven't won a Stanley Cup in nearly 60. Canada's easily, I mean, I can speak on behalf of Canada. The famous, in the 80s, when they used to kind of have like whatever the World Cup of hockey was called back then, I think they called it like the Canada Cup. And they famously beat the Soviet Union. There was a big deal in the 80s, similar to Miracle on Ice. 2010, Sidney Crosby, golden goal, would be up there.
Donovan Bailey.
Absolutely. Donovan Bailey talked about that. Mark Tewksbury in the swimming in what was that, 92 is often talked about as well. Their the women's team winning gold in Tokyo in soccer, big deal. I weirdly read a lot of these like top 10 lists of like sporting moments from countries, and it's often Australia, Canada, the US, and New Zealand, funnily enough, because I live there. So yeah, it's but no, I know that the hockey cup, the one in the 80s is often regarded as Canada's number one moment, alongside Sidney Crosby in 2010, which I loved 2002 because that was their first gold medal in men's hockey in 50 years. They broke the drought, right? And I stayed home. My mum let me stay home from school as a 15-year-old to watch an Olympic gold medal match between the USA and Canada as an Australian in a suburban Hobart home to cheer on Team Canada beating the USA in Salt Lake City. So, sorry, Jamie, to bring that up. But anyway.
That's fine.
We got to a fun little bit, which we're going to get to in a moment, but just a couple of things in terms of updating some of our Team OTP athletes. There's one or two people I want to talk about a lot here. But before I get to them, Kylie Mass overnight, literally when we've recorded this, has broken the Canadian 50-meter backstroke record. Kind of relevant considering we just talked about the 50-meter backstroke has been added to the Olympics in 2028. Great athlete. We like to call her almost she just always wins silver at the Olympics. We feel bad for her. In a way, feel bad for her, but also generally she's getting beaten by Kaylee McEwen, so good for Australia. But for Kylie, we hope that bodes well, that she can finally crack through for an Olympic gold in a couple of years' time. I wanted to send a shout out to Australian field hockey player Tatum Stewart, who we had on the show a couple of months ago. As we spoke to her not long after Paris, she had just had an injury and she was basically out for months, and she was in recovery phase at that point. She returned to the pitch literally last night at the time of recording this, Hockey Roos. So great to see Tatum back out there on the pitch. And if I'm not mistaken, the Hockey Roos did win that game. I think it was against India, so congratulations to them. And the other one that I wanted to touch on the summer side of things, Matt Denny, discus thrower, bronze medalist, of course, in Paris. Don't know if you read about this. He went to a meet in Oklahoma where apparently it's renowned for wind assistance. So a lot of the discus throwers, they love it because like it boosts their throwing, right? So he went out, and I don't believe he'd ever thrown over 70 meters before. So he'd set a few personal bests. At this meet, he went out, threw 74.28 meters, which was a world record. Matt Denny, world record holder, fantastic, was beaten like 5 minutes later by the guy who got the silver in Paris, essentially. So he held it for about 5 minutes, but I wanted to send a shout out to Matt Denny, who's been in some great form, and I know the Diamond League is just, I think this weekend, does it not get underway? I
don't think it could, it could be, but also the Michael Johnson's new Grand Slam track league is in Miami this weekend.
Right. Okay.
And that got off to a really good start in Kingston, Jamaica last month. So
I've seen a few people in
that.
A few of the athletes are in Beijing, I believe, this weekend. I'm not sure if that's a Diamond League or if it's something else, or it's somewhere in China.
Oh, yeah, right. Well, that's that's why Norway's talking.
We're very knowledgeable. Right? The one I have to talk about, I absolutely have to talk about this, and this is where Canada comes back into play, curling. I know we've briefly talked about curling before, but right now, at the time of recording this, and probably by the time we release this will be over and done with, so we're hoping for the best over the weekend. The Mixed Doubles World Curling Championships are on right now in Canada, and our beloved duo in Australia of Dean Hewitt and Tyler Gill are there representing Australia. Now, to date this a little bit as well, I interviewed them about a month ago. And if people saw our upcoming month, we've got that interview airing at the end of May. So it's going to be very dated because we talk about the upcoming Mixed Doubles World Championships. By the time that airs, it's well and truly over and done with. They have been absolutely kicking ass at this World Championships. Across the week, they only lost one game, and that was to Japan, right? So they came out and they're beating the likes of Norway. They're beating the USA. They're beating Estonia, who are the current runners-up at the World Championships a year ago. They went through this losing only one game. They topped the group, and they, at the time of recording this, are through to the semi-final where they will either play Scotland or the USA. Now, obviously, this is going to be completely dated by the time that people are listening to this because that game is on later tonight at the time of doing this. But this means that no matter what happens, they, worst case scenario, will equal the best ever result that Australia's ever had at these World Championships, which was fourth set by Dean and Tali back in 2019. So that's that side of things. But I'm spoiling this interview in a couple of weeks because as Dean and Tali talk about Olympic qualification, the way it works is like points combined and everything along those lines. For them to essentially guarantee themselves a spot at the Olympics next year, they said that they basically have to medal. So if they win tonight to go to the gold medal match, no matter what happens, pretty much confirms them qualification to the Olympics next year, which means they avoid having to go through the qualification tournament later this year, which they had to do last time. So I am just beyond happy and excited for any Team OTP member that does well, but we've formed a very good relationship with Dean and Tali over the years. We've had them on obviously multiple times, and you know, sometimes when you don't have children, but you feel like you've got connections to people that you're almost like the show's children. Dean and Talia are up there in the handful of athletes on this show that I personally really feel very closely connected to. So I am rooting beyond rooting, which is a different word in this country. I'm using the American terminology of rooting for this one, that that they can make it through the gold medal game or at least come away with a medal and secure it. So, yeah. Have you been paying attention to the World Curling Mixed Doubles Championships up there in Canada, Jamie?
I've been a little busy with baseball season getting going and the NBA playoffs. I apologize. And the NFL draft.
And the Leafs and the NHL, of course. Essentially, so again, it's going to be dated. By the time you're listening to this year, people would know the results. But Australia, as I said, USA, Canada. And the other side of the draw, you've got Italy, who will play either Canada or Estonia. Essentially in those semifinals. So, I mean, look, we've already beaten the US in the group stage, and as Scottish heritage, that's a very hard one if Australia has to play Scotland or the USA, which they will. So, and then if it's Australia,
don't
Canada,
all the curling stones come from Scotland?
They do, from that one mountain cliff. Yeah, yep. That's why Scotland always feel robbed when it comes to the Olympics that they've got to compete against as Great Britain. Because, you know, they can't compete as Scotland. So, but yes, we're posting that on our socials across the weekend. So if you're listening to this on the Monday and you haven't seen the results, by all means, check that out. Dean and Talia, all the best of luck. And by all means, check out that interview in a few weeks because it is another great chat with them, which I've got to say are some of the most random questions I've ever asked on this show before. So, yeah, just I may have some disparaging marks against a man who, again, at the time of recording this, could be our next Prime Minister in 24 hours, but he won't be. So anyway, I'm losing track of that. Jamie, before we get to our last bit, I'm going to play a clip. Speaking of interviews, this coming week, we have got returning to the show, Australian shooter Elena Galiabovich, who was in Paris, her third Olympics. She shoots in the air pistol category, and great to have her back on the show and very open and honest about her performance there and obviously her future in the sport. She's sort of at this point in time where she's sort of questioning whether she might go to a fourth Olympics or not. She's an esteemed doctor, so she's obviously got a very heavy profession that she's trying to do. But one thing I discovered in the lead up to talking to Elena is that shooters have to have restrictions around clothing, which I didn't know if you knew or not. And not just like, say, a vest or something like that. I'm talking about leg wear, which to me means shit all in shooting. But as you're about to hear now, Elena explains a little bit around what could happen with a pair of shorts and if they're too short. Let's hear this clip. If you have got a short that's, are you disqualified? Like, is this kind of...
Yeah, I think they make you go change.
That, you know, this is so fat. You are the third shooter I've interviewed recently, and we're staggering these interviews. Between you, Josh, and Sergey, I am learning, like, these little things. Like, Josh teaching me, essentially, that climate change could affect his event. by the time the next Olympics. Sergey saying his event might not even be at the next Olympics, and now you're telling me that you can get disqualified because your shorts are too bloody short. I mean, of all the sports,
It's actually pretty wild.
of all
That's so
the
funny.
sports that I could imagine you getting disqualified for a uniform malfunction, shooting would be down near the bottom. Like, I mean, what is going on
it's
here?
pretty wild. You're not allowed any camouflage. Like, there's all these rules.
Wow. That's insane.
Anyway,
That is absolutely
Yeah.
insane. The things you learn.
that was pretty funny.
I mean,
thank you for reminding me of this because this is one of the funny things.
This
This
is
is
what
one of
we're
the things
here
I can
for.
look back on and laugh. That's so good. That was gold. Yeah, I love that.
I'm now questioning the logistics of having a Turkish shooter with his hand in his pocket. That somehow should be illegal based on these stupid rules. Like, I mean,
No,
that's
his pants were full length.
No.
Pants were full length.
touche. They were. That's. I mean, I'm no pun intended, blown away by just learning everything about shooting.
It's so funny. You know, it's actually quite nice as well on the flip side not to have to worry about those little things in the background.
Yeah.
Just like a little bit of stress has gone away.
Well, we've had, I mean, athletes from ski jumping, for example, we've learned like their crotches are measured because of just certain things of their aerodynamics. I mean, gymnastics, famously, there have been people disqualified because their bra straps showing.
Bra strap,
like,
yeah.
Stupid things like that, which, I mean,
That is pretty
2025, like, come on, are we not moved past that sort of crap? But
Wow,
it's-
crotch measuring is next
no,
level.
crotch measuring and ski jumping is a thing. So we've got some great interviews on this show. Somewhere I'm
I'll
asking
have to
athletes,
listen to that one.
maybe not of appropriate age, and I'm talking about their crotches, but hey, like you've got to ask the question about their suits. That's what I'm trying to say. Just to clarify, if the police are listening, that was a...
Yeah, it's so true. Every sport has all these little quirks, and someone outside would be like, "What do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, why is this even an issue?"
You're like normal. This is part of what you've grown up with in the sport. And then
Yeah,
somebody like me
yeah.
is like, what? They're measuring your shorts? Like, come on. What's going on here? What's going on? I don't know if we ever need to bring in a standardized uniform for off the podium where I have to go around measuring your short. I'm not going to. Don't worry. Yeah, fascinating that was a topic of conversation. But that's dropping this Friday with Elena. It's a great chat. And, of course, if you saw what we've got coming up this month, some great chats. Our chat with Levi Young-Rivavar last week, Filipino gymnast, a fantastic chat. Check that one out, and some other great ones coming up on Off the Podium. And one other thing that I need to address, Mr. Lyko, our good old friends over at Keep the Flame Alive. Hello, Jill and Allison. Always good. Or do I even call them friends? I don't think we're friends with them anymore because based on what they've said on a recent episode, I don't think they think we're friends anymore, which I'm a bit offended by. But they've come out, try to start a bit of a beef because...
Are you telling me there's drama in the world of
I think
high-end Olympic podcasting?
I think that, TMZ might need to get involved in this because, there's going drama. I got called out because they're doing a sort of a year-long retrospective on the Sydney 2000 Olympics, which 25 years this year, of course. We'll be doing a special on that later on in this year. But I was called out because apparently in my conversations with them, I never mentioned to them the little Australian television show called The Dream, which was a very, very, very famous show during the Sydney Olympics, hosted by comedians Roy and HG, sort of a daily piss take, essentially, of the Olympics. Very, very famous. I have it. Jamie, if you ever want to see it, please, you need to see it. It's brilliant.
Yes, please.
A couple of things on that. Jill and Allison, love you both, but, if you listen to this show, you would know that I talk about it regularly. Literally in the Levi Young-Rivavar interview that I just mentioned, I bring it up, funnily enough. I was then also lambasted for not mentioning Fatso, the great sort of unofficial mascot of the Sydney Olympics, alongside Sid Millie and Ollie. Again, listen to the show. We mention Fatso a lot whenever we talk about Sydney. And I also just want to counter that by saying I reached out to you guys and said if you want to have someone from Australia come on and talk about the Sydney Olympics and what it was like on the ground and the vibe and everything, put my hand up. Never got that invitation. So... just saying, if we want to start this beef, I'm ready to get out the stakes because, come on. I gladly will tell you this. And please don't disparage Fatso. He's a national icon. So, and I'm glad you're enjoying Fatso and The Dream. Did you listen to this show enough to know about The Dream of Fatso, or do you have a beef with me too? That I'm not bringing this up in conversation every 5 minutes, apparently. Hi, Jamie. How you doing? Have you heard about Fatso?
I mean, I have a variety of issues with you, but none of them revolve around Fatso or your lack of talking about him or the show The Dream, which I'm excited to now watch.
It's also triggering to hear that word fat, so it just reminds me of my childhood, so we don't like to bring it up too much. Now, thank you. Listen to Keep the Flame Alive, seriously. They're great. I'm still friends with them. I think your friend's still Jill and Allison, all right?
I'm an avid listener.
We had dinner more so than this show. Doesn't know who Fatso is. Well, you've got a beef with them in a minute too, from what we're about to talk about.
Oh yeah.
Our closing this, we like to sort of do this and close it on a bit of a talking point about something a little bit different. Obviously, this is be a part of the show in the future where we preview sports and everything. But this month, we thought let's bring up the topic of Olympic movies and Olympic media and TV shows and everything along those lines, because we don't generally have episodes where we can talk about this. You know, we thought about it. We had another spin-off show where we talked about Olympic movies in the past, but this is something there. And Jamie made the very good point this week. Like, let's have this. Let's talk about Olympic movies. So we put that out in our socials. We put it out on Reddit. We've found a few lists and just going to take the sort of the closing moments to talk about some of our favorite Olympic movies. And not necessarily, I mean, this is, again, we can maybe have a clarification because you brought this up beforehand. Like, is this purely movies based on the Olympics? Does something like Blades of Glory fall through the cracks because it technically is an Olympic movie? They just didn't get the rights to the Olympics, so they made their own Olympics. Like, yeah, anyway, open slather, and feel free to rip into Jill and Allison right now if you want to add to this beef.
Oh, I'll get there. But first, my biggest concern is, much like the debate over whether or not Die Hard is a Christmas movie, in whatever side of that argument you come down, I do feel like there's a little. I agree.
More so than White Christmas. That's my argument. White Christmas, not a Christmas movie. Die Hard, Christmas movie. Sorry.
So is Lethal Weapon. Not just going to throw that out there too.
And on Her Majesty's Secret Service. That's a Christmas movie.
Yeah, I'm on board with that.
Anyway, sorry, Jamie.
But with I know. I don't want to talk about James Bond. I can't wade into the deep end of the pool with you on that. But I don't think you look at a lot of these lists, and any movie that in all references the Olympics gets called an Olympic movie. I don't think that Foxcatcher is an Olympic movie. I don't think that Richard Jewell is an Olympic movie. I don't know that, just as much as I don't think that, and this is again, I believe the movie's called Black Sunday, where Robert Shaw is trying to destroy the Super Bowl by landing a blimp on the field and blowing it up. That is not a football movie. So just for me, going to winning at, not winning at the Olympic Games is a crucial point. I mean, obviously all the documentaries about the Olympics are Olympic movies. Can be fictional, can be non-fictional. I don't know that there's ever been a great fictional movie.
I'll get to one that never gets talked about. I'll get to one. But yeah.
Okay. What's that?
Well, it's the one they actually filmed at the Olympics in 2018, Olympic Dreams. I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
I have seen that. I have also served Nick Kroll beer.
Hey.
And I also like Alexi Pappas's other movie, Tracktown.
Yeah. About
her, kind of based on her real life being a runner at Oregon after she was a runner at Dartmouth. So that's all right.
It's one that it's surprising me. That
I'll throw personal best out there.
What was it?
That's amazing.
Cutting Edge? That's a fictional one, isn't it, at the Olympics?
Oh yeah, and that spawned like 14 sequels. That's that like a lot of made to TV, made direct to video movies. Yeah. Downhill Racer, a great fictional Olympic movie. TV
show that I stupidly got into back in the day was Make It or Break It. That was about the gymnasts who were trying to get to the Olympics. I think the final episode was them. They qualified for London, and then that was it. The show was over. Yeah.
I brought this. I was talking to my wife about this, and she mentioned a movie called The Bronze, which she says is hilarious, which I have not seen.
Okay.
So that's on my list.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's one of these ones where it is like straight away you say it. You're thinking Cool Runnings. You're thinking Miracle. I would even argue I, Tonya is like line ball. I mean, it's obviously the Olympics play a key part in it, but to me, it's more about Tonya Harding than the Olympic experience, if you know what I mean. I would, like, I completely know what you're saying about a Richard Jewell, but I would argue Richard Jewell is more of an Olympic movie than, say, Munich. You know, I mean, we did on the Oz Network last year, we did Olympic month, and we'd done it previously back in the day. I think that was at Pyeongchang, and there are a lot more seemingly winter movies than summer movies. But, you know, we sort of, I think last year, what did we do? We did Richard Jewell, funnily enough. We did Race. We did Olympic Dreams. And what was the other one we did? Chariots of Fire, of course, which we've not even brought up. So that was it. And for the winter one back in 2018, we did Cool Runnings, Eddie the Eagle, Miracle, and I, Tonya. So yeah, but I mean, look.
Yeah, I guess off the top of my head, I would have been like, oh yeah, there's way more.
The one that's come out recently, Boys in the Boat.
Summer Olympic ones, but yeah, that's a lot of
Yeah, I mean, well, I've got a couple of lists here. We've got a few, obviously, Reddit ones
go ahead.
And a couple of lists here. So just on what we posted, sort of what was sent in to us. I mean, obviously, Cool Runnings sent in a lot, and I mean, look, if I'm here and I'm saying the best Olympic movie of all time, it's Cool Runnings. I'm sorry, but like, it's one of my favorite movies personally, and that is a key reason why I discovered what bobsled is. It's a key reason why I like the Winter Olympics. It's a key reason why Calgary plays such a part of my life when it comes to sporting teams. Like, it's so many connections to Cool Running. So obvious one there.
All right.
Chariots of Fire gets brought up here. I, Tonya, Miracle. A lot of people say Miracle and Munich. Somebody says Ice Princess. Rest in peace, Michelle Trachtenberg. I mean, I agree. Rest in peace, Michelle Trachtenberg. But Ice Princess, does she go to the Olympics? I can't remember that one. Eddie the Eagle, which to me is just Cool Runnings with ski jumping. An amazing movie. I actually rewatched that only a few weeks ago, and that to me is going to be like Cool Runnings. I feel in 10, 15 years' time, it will be much more of a cult remembered movie than it is now. Because I feel a lot of people forget Eddie the Eagle exists, but it's actually a really good movie. Race, we talked about that on the Oz Network, that obviously ended up being like a Canadian film, and it still baffles me that there has never been the big, huge, absolute mega giant Hollywood treatment of Jesse Owens. Because that movie really kind of didn't do well and kind of just got like skipped under the rug.
I put off it's one to your point. I think part of the reason that we never gave a big Hollywood treatment to Jesse Owens is we definitely gave Jesse Owens a really big American treatment of Jesse Owens when he came back. I put off watching Race for like, I wasn't sure that I was like, if this is bad, it's going to break my heart. Like it just has to clear the lowest bar and I'll be very happy with it. And I was Jason Sudeikis, who I loved, completely took me out of the movie and any scene that he was in. Because if I had seen it before he was Ted Lasso, maybe it would have worked. But
Jeremy Irons is Avery Brundage. Like
Jeremy Irons is Avery Brundage, which is, I've nicknamed this bug that I keep swiping at during this live recording. I've nicknamed him Avery Brundage. William Hurt's in it.
Yeah. And the guy who plays Jesse Owens is he's somewhat notable, isn't he? I think he's Canadian from memory. But he was good. So it's a good, it does the job. I mean, other ones here, like obviously Boys in the Boat is a very new one. September 5th, very new one. A lot of people bring up the Tokyo. I think was it a documentary though ahead of the 64 or after the 64 Olympics?
Like I feel like, I mean, the best Olympic documentary for me, and it's because it's the first Olympics I watched, and then we watched the documentary when it was put out on TV, was 16 Days of Glory, the one that Bud Greenspan did about 84, that our mutual friend Rowdy Gaines plays a huge part in that. But I think the two Olympic documentaries, and I think all of the Olympic documentaries are like in the Criterion collection.
I mean, when we get to the official lists like Vulture and Forbes, a lot of them are documentaries. Again, it's that fun. So you've got your three tiers. You've got your documentaries, you've got your movies that are 100% about the Olympics or an Olympic event, and then you've sort of got like a lot of people here are mentioning like sports movies that are Olympic sports. So like the one that gets brought up a lot, and I mentioned it before, Blades of Glory. I mean, look, it is like, to me, it is an Olympic movie because they obviously just didn't get the rights for the Olympics, so they create their own version of the Olympics. And by all letters of the law, it's the Olympics. And obviously when we talk to Johnny Weir, what's his face? Napoleon Dynamite's costume was based on Johnny Weir. So there's all these connections. It had like Brian Boy Tyner in it. Like it had famous figure skaters in it. So, it was by all letters of the law an Olympics movie.
I mean, it's hilarious.
It's a great
Don't get
movie.
me wrong. But when I make my list of the greatest movies about newsrooms, it's going to be broadcast news and it's going to be network, and I'm not going to count Anchorman. So
good point. And just I literally watched September 5, 2 weeks ago. Brilliant movie. So good.
I think I watched it the night after you watched it. So
good. It really lit the candle. Like, I haven't seen Munich in a while. So I watched Munich last week, and I always remember Munich liking it, but I always just remember there being this weird, why didn't I fully like it? And then it clicked. Because to me, the thing with Munich is I forget that it's not really about what happened at Munich. It's what happened after Munich. So you really open with the attack for 5 minutes. And then the whole thing is about Eric Bana, Daniel. There's so many Bond actors in it. There are 2 full Bond villains in this movie alongside a James Bond. But the whole thing is about them doing what they did afterwards, which is half true, half not true. And the weirdest scene to me in that movie is the sex scene where Eric Bana is having sex with his wife while having flashbacks to all the Israeli hostages getting murdered. And when he reaches the pinnacle of his activity with his wife, there's explosions happening. And I get what you're doing, Spielberg, but this is kind of odd. So
it was like he was trying to do the scene at the christening in The Godfather, where while they're christening actually Sofia Coppola, he's taking care of all his family business, and it was a little off-putting.
But let's go over. So Forbes.com, and I'm trying to see when they released this. This was actually released in the lead up to Paris last year. So they released a list of their top 20 Olympic movies. And again, these feature documentaries. So they've got the 2020 Weight of Gold HBO documentary, which had Phelps in it, didn't it? It had Simone Biles in it, I think, from memory, Shaun White, people like that. They have Cool Runnings at 19. Forbes? That almost makes me want to just stop reading this list right now. Come on. They've got a 2000...
I mean, I've been fired for a lot of reasons. The thumbs up emoji. My affinity for Taylor Swift. I would say putting Cool Runnings at 19 is properly ranked.
Oh, that hurts
for me personally.
2006 documentary on the revolution, the water polo match, Soviet Union. Was that from Melbourne? Freedom's Fury. International Velvet, 1978.
It was the sequel to National Velvet with Elizabeth Taylor, where Tatum O'Neal is, I believe, trying to get to the Olympics in equestrian.
Oh, I've not heard of that one. There you go. So again, you've got documentaries here. So you have Fists of Freedom, the story of the 68 Summer Games, of course, with the famous, salute on the podium and dear old Australian runner who also got incredibly ignored. You got The Cutting Edge at 15. 9.79, which I believe is a documentary on Ben Johnson, is it not? From 2012.
Yeah, that's the 30 for 30 series. Yeah, that was pretty good.
Boys in the Boat at number 13. Visions of 8, 1973. Yeah. Now, this one's on Munich Olympics as well, is it? I'm not familiar with that one. Downhill Racer, which I believe you mentioned prior to that. That's at number 11. White Rock from 1977, a film about the 76 Olympics. Jim Thorpe, All-American.
That's interesting, but White Rock, download the soundtrack.
Okay, Jim Thorpe, All-American, 1951. That one's there. The Crash Reel, another documentary from 2013. Foxcatcher, which you obviously debate whether it's an Olympic movie or not. That's number 7. We have Icarus, 2017. Isn't that about
that's the documentary about the doping.
Yep, okay. Without Limits from 1998. Jared Leto in that one? A long-distance runner, non-Olympics
This is
movie?
where we get into my beef with Keep the Flame, the wonderful people at Keep the Flame. They did an episode on the 2 movies made about Steve Prefontaine in the late 90s.
Okay.
And they picked the Jared Leto one.
Okay.
Over, which is just called Prefontaine, over Without Limits, which stars Billy Crudup, which is the far superior film, without question.
Sorry, Alison and Jill, you're becoming whipping girls all of a sudden. 16 Days of Glory comes in at number 4 on this list. Miracle, which we've barely touched on, brilliant movie, number 3. And then number 2, we've got the Tokyo Olympiad. That was the one I touched on before, around the 1964 ones. And then number 1, Chariots of Fire, which I'll be honest, I'd never seen Chariots of Fire until about 12 months ago. And a great film. I mean, obviously, many reasons why that's a great film. But yeah, I mean, that's number 1. I'm not going to go through all of the ones here on Vulture, but their number 1 is Foxcatcher. So there you go. Some other ones on this one that we haven't mentioned. They've got Olympia, which is, I mean, the infamous Germany 1936 sort of propaganda film, which, I mean, look, there's old things about that one, but I mean, it's very iconic when it comes to sports filmmaking. They've got Munich on their list at number 5. Chariots of Fire is only number 6 on their list. Visions of 8 is on the list. They've got I, Tonya on their list. Cool Runnings at 12. And they've got Blades of Glory on their list at number 15. Right now, your top 3. Give me your top 3 Olympic movies of all time.
It doesn't matter if it's a documentary or not.
You whatever criteria you want. I'm not going to be strict on this. You can.
I am going to go Chariots of Fire,
okay,
Without Limits, and Personal Best.
Okay, I would go Cool Runnings. I'm sorry, I just love Cool Runnings, and I'm sorry, I love Eddie the Eagle. The soundtrack, like, it's just, I know, again, a lot of that's bullshit, but like, it's just, I love Eddie the Eagle. It's a great movie. And I really enjoy Richard Jewell. Again, that's like, it's a 50-50. Is it really an Olympic movie? I get the argument against it. But as a journalist and kind of like the media and kind of how that all goes about, it's a brilliant, to me, that's like September 5, where it's like, that should have gotten more award love than it did. And particularly September.
I thought September 5 was great. And you know, all of the little, like, Easter egg heavy.
Yeah.
If you know if you're interested in all in like the debate of over TV rights that went on in the 70s and the fight that went on. I mean, they reference Rune's second in command, Don Ohlmeyer, like being off on a hike in the mountains. And, you know, he was the guy that then went to NBC and negotiated for the 1980 Summer Games, which, you know, the Soviets took all the network heads. They famously said that the Soviets took all the network heads and they put 3 scorpions in a bottle and made them fight it out. Like, great. I mean, just that in and of itself could be a great movie, but I really liked September 5th and seeing it from that point and like having to make those decisions. It reminded me a lot of I don't know if you're a Newsroom fan, the American Newsroom,
the TV show.
Yeah, you know, and like the debates that go on and those
Brilliant
instant calls you have to make about what's news, what isn't, what can we air, what can't we? Yeah, I was really impressed with September 5.
And again, as a journalist, I always like to see sort of media movies where the journalists aren't the evil people, you know what I mean? Like, they're just doing their job.
Right.
And these are those types of movies where, like, yeah, they get it pretty accurate. They get a very good sense of what it's like. And The Newsroom is a great example of that. It's very, very accurate on a lot of what it's done there. The other one that we should just also quickly mention that you sent to me, that it's very topical that this comes out when we're talking about this week, that there's actually a new movie coming out on the Winter Olympics called Winter Games, and it's got Miles Teller in it. So they've come to a deal based on this. Deadline have reported this film follows a story of romance and reclamation that brews between an incredibly neglected snowrider and a self-destructive hockey player in the face of the crucial Winter Olympics. I saw this and I'm like, is that just not Olympic dreams? It's just a love story in the Olympic Village?
Or it's cutting edge. It's just they're doing it at the games. It's
I mean, look, I'm excited. I mean, any movie on the Olympics, you're going to be excited. And going back to our point, there's not really fictional movies about the Olympics, so this is kind of one. So
I mean, Miles' Tenor's doing his next movie is he's redoing Officer and a Gentleman.
Oh.
So I'm just glad to see him not doing a movie that he's remaking from the 80s where he plays a naval officer.
I don't really have Miles Teller falls into that category of I forget which one he is, of like the Ansel Elgort or whatever his name is, and the guy who played Han Solo in Solo. Like, they all just kind of blend in. Standard looking white dude who just plays the same role in every movie. Not quite like a Timothy Chalamet Ding Dong, who I can't stand. You know, he's like the lesser type. But then you look at who's the really good looking rooster from Top Gun, who's now like the hot deal. I like
Glenn
him.
Powell.
Glenn Powell. He's the opposite. He's like, you know, above that level now. So I don't know. I mean, Miles Teller, good for you, my friend. Go and skate and ski. And I wonder if it's going to be timed in time for the Olympics next year. So We'll see. I just want to add Olympic Dreams. See it. It's like it's a quirky, almost like a documentary the way they film it, and it's the only ever movie in the history of the Olympics to be filmed at the Olympics during the Olympics. The IOC gave them permission. They film it during Pyeongchang. Jackie Narracott, our favourite skeleton race from Australia, has a cameo in this movie. There are real Olympic athletes in this movie that make cameos. I really wish I had seen Olympic Dreams before we had Jackie on the show, because I messaged her afterwards like, "You're in this movie," and she was telling me the story about how that happened. But it's quirky.
You should reach out to Alexi Pappas and have her on the show. I think
we're on our list, and we're going to try again. But I mean, Nick Kroll, I was unfamiliar with until I started watching Big Mouth, and then obviously fell in love with him and think he's a fantastic, hilarious guy. So Olympic Dreams. It's quirky. It's just a cute little love story set in the Olympic Village in 2018. Nick Kroll's a dentist. What's not to like about that? So anyway, we'll have another fun topic of discussion next month. I don't know what it will be, but we'll see how it goes. Jamie, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much for coming back on and doing this. Any exciting Olympic related things coming up? When are you off to the Michael Johnson meet for yourself?
The LA meet is in June, but we also have the LA Grand Prix here this month. And the roster for that looks pretty good. I don't know that I'm getting to any other Olympic events this summer. Having a 3-year-old and a 7-year-old is a biathlon in and of itself. So, well,
good luck with that. Who do you root for in the NBA playoffs? I don't know if I've ever really. Are you a Lakers or a Clippers?
I'm a Boston Celtics fan. I'm from Connecticut, New England. Yeah,
of course you are. All right, okay. Well, as a neutral, I'm Team Knicks and Clippers right now, but don't know about the Clippers. But who knows the Knicks? They might not choke for once.
I think the Knicks won tonight, so
get on board it. They'll get beaten by you guys then in the next round. So we'll see how that plays out. But we will hear your voice again, of course, in a couple of weeks, because as we touched on last month, we are bringing our brand new games review episode, and that is coming out in a couple of weeks. You, Colin, and I, Athens 1896. And on the topic of shows and movies on the Olympics, we've tracked down the very interesting looking TV mini-series called The First Games, based on Athens. Have you watched? I haven't watched it yet, but I don't know if you've watched it yet.
Oh, I watched it when it was on television in 1984, buddy.
There you go.
I'm old.
Before I was born. But that'll be in a couple of weeks. And we're excited to sort of start this series and go back 100-odd years before we're all born and talk about the very first ever Olympics and start this new series. So tune in for that. Jamie, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
As always, like, subscribe, do all the things we tell you to do. Offthepodiumpod.com is where you can get all those links and everything else in between. If you've enjoyed this episode, my name has been Ben Waterworth. And today, if you haven't enjoyed this episode, my name has been Jill and Allison from Keep the Flame Alive. Good night.